So at this news hour, I'm Solomon Daniel. Thanks for joining me. Office of the Prime Minister says the government will continue working closely with humanitarian agencies and development partners to bring normalcy, adequately address existing and new humanitarian needs in Tigray regional state. Following the treasonous attack perpetrated by the TPLF criminal clique against the Ethiopian National Defense Forces on 4 November 2020, complex challenges in the region emerged as a direct consequence of the Treasonous Act, which has put civilians in Tigray under great vulnerability, the office said. Over the past months, and despite the misplaced assignment of culpability on the government of a sovereign Ethiopia, various efforts have been undertaken by the federal government to address the region's complex security, humanitarian and social challenges existing and emerging following the criminality of the rogue group. These efforts to stabilize the Tigray region, to bring normalcy to the lives of citizens, to adequately address existing and new humanitarian needs will continue by the federal government in close collaboration with humanitarian agencies and development partners. Ministry of Foreign Affairs has today issued a statement refuting Amnesty International's report on alleged incidents in the city of Aksu. According to the statement, the whole purpose of the government's law enforcement operation has been to restore law and order in the region and bring those criminals to justice. These operations were conducted with utmost precaution to avoid collateral damage on civilians and civilian institutions, the statement said. Allegations of human rights abuses, including sexual violence and other unfortunate incidents related to the Tigray region in general and the city of Aksum in particular, are indeed matters of grave concern. Today, Amnesty International has released its report on allegations related to the incidents in the city of Aksum. The report raises serious issues that should be of great concern, but obviously the methodology employed in producing the report has its own limitations, as it depended on scanty information gathered from refugees in eastern Sudan and phone interview with individuals in Aksum. For instance, one of the sources cited in the report is found not to be a priest, as he claimed, but a deceptive person who lives in Boston. Well, to tell us more about this issue, we're now joined over the phone by the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Dina Mufti. Hello, Ambassador. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening.
Well, thank you for having you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me as well.
Well, let's start off by this particular question. Why has Amnesty International released such type of information? Is it deliberate or it's just a lack of proper information?
Well, it could be a mix of both. However, as has been expressed by the statement of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it has been loud and clear that the methodology which the Amnesty International has employed has a lot to desire to be improved, and despite the fact that though the government of Ethiopia is gravely concerned about the human rights violations, the government is ready to investigate, in fact, bring the culprits of the human rights violators to law and order. The methodology that has been employed by the Amnesty International desires a lot of improvements and has a lot of loopholes and the limitations that had been clearly stated. Some of the individuals that have been sources of information are individuals that are suspected of being criminals. Some of them are individuals who had been culprits of the Maikadra massacres. Oh. And the methodology, one is a question based on the distance. Two, the individuals are to be suspected because the case of the guy who resides in one of the European countries who has presented himself as a priest speaks louder and clear about the fallacies of the methodology.
Well,
yes.
Ethiopia has now allowed foreign media outlets to enter into the state of Tigray. Most of them have been reporting based on erroneous narratives being circulated about the situation. Do you think their existence can change their way of reporting?
Definitely. Some good instances have started coming up. For example, the Al Jazeera correspondent had been reporting from Mekelle, and he was saying he has come across things that he has never expected, and has come across situations that which is different, very different from what he has been told and what he has been hearing from reports. So I think this will happen because they will be on the ground, they will see things for themselves. Particularly, they will be able to see the massive efforts being undertaken by the government or either in the areas of the relief operations. And this definitely will help them, will help the international community, will in fact clear the confusions, because most of the people are talking a lot about absence of any efforts, and some of the reporters are reporting about as if nothing is happening there with regard to relief operations. Now the media presence will help to clear these erroneous and fake news actually.
Well, and how prepared is your ministry to refute any misleading information disseminated by these powerful international media outlets?
Well, media itself, the media as well, we're bringing in media actually, exposing the situation to the media itself will help us in fact witnessing, in reporting the objective reality on the ground. That the reality itself will dispel the notions, wrong notions. And otherwise, institutions like our embassies, consulate offices, or diplomats abroad also will help us in disseminating the right information, contrary to the wrong and fake information that had been spreading around.
Well, spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Dina Mufti, thank you for your time.
You are welcome. Have a nice evening.
Have a good night. Historians applaud the immense role of Empress Taitu and other Ethiopian women for the victory of Adwa, citing Empress Taitu's military strategy to siege Italian forces in Mekelle. A woman empowerment consultant, Fuzum Atnafork Kidane Marem, expressed the need for equal platform for all professional women in the political arena, recalling women's role in Adwa's victory. Jerusalem Bazaar reports.
History indicated that about 4 years before the Battle of Adwa, the central and northern part of Ethiopia was hit by several natural calamities, including drought, which exacerbated the famine. Those things impoverished most of the people, particularly the peasantry in central and northern Ethiopia. Therefore, for Emperor Menelik II and the rest of the prominent nobility of Ethiopia by then was thinking about the campaign to Adwa, worrying about food supply. However, Ethiopian women, Empress Taitu in particular, did a remarkable contribution in managing the food supply.
So Taitu took that in charge. So food items were gathered from different parts of Ethiopia, particularly southern Ethiopia, which was not highly affected by the drought, the famine. And it was gathered in Addis. It has to be transported all the way to Adwa, Warreilu, Mekelle, and other places. So Taitu organized a team which is in charge of this, and she did a miraculous job in terms of that. And then, apart from Taitu, women played an important role for the success of the campaign. You see, the presence of food supplies means one thing. But food preparation for the army required a lot of things. So there were about 50,000 maximum, or between 40,000 and 50,000 women who were engaged in preparation of food and serving food for the army, all the way from Addis Ababa to Adwa, and then the way back also.
Women in Ethiopia these days are also playing active role, covering 50% of the government's cabinet. This is what the woman empowerment consultant and trainer Fitsum Atnafork Kidane Mariam called an inspiring move.
We have 50% women in the cabinet. That is something that we celebrate, like the Adwa victory. For me, it's like the Adwa victory, because looking at my age, looking at 50% women ministers in Ethiopia, it is a wow. And we have a woman president. It is a wow. It is something that we celebrate. Because for the next generation, they can say like, oh, I can be a prime minister. I can be a president. Because they have a witness to see. For us, there was no women in the leadership position at that level, and then we have never dreamed of the prime minister or the president position.
However, Fitsum urged the government to create a platform that allows all women professionals to participate in the political sphere regardless of their political ideology.
When it comes to the political arena, we don't have many women in leadership on the political road because of the system. For example, when as a professional woman, I don't want to be a politician. Because I don't want to be a politician, I cannot be a prime minister. So that is our system. That's how we are in Ethiopia and of course in the world. In order to be a leader, a country leader, yes, I can be a leader in my organization or I can be a higher leader in any organization. But I cannot be a country leader in Ethiopia because I'm not a politician. And then it's not only me. There are many professionals who are left behind and then who cannot contribute to the country because they are not politicians. They are only professionals. So that system has to be changed.
Fitsum also stressed the need for high attention to the education system to create capable women and men in all sectors.
Ethiopia is celebrating the 125th anniversary of the victory of Adwa for a month long in February. Many African leaders have expressed their point of view on the victory. It's to be recalled that former President of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, during the 120th anniversary of Adwa victory, said African leaders can learn good leadership skills of Emperor Menelik II, who defeated Italian invaders in the Battle of Adwa. Emmanuel Joge presents the story.
Italians coming out of the Berlin Conference, which was in November 1884-5, which then allocated African countries and in turn colonized, but not Ethiopia. Italy tried to occupy Ethiopia in many ways. However, they could not succeed because Ethiopians defeated them in the unprecedented Battle of Adwa. In his remark on the 120th anniversary of victory of Adwa, former President of South Africa Thabo Mbeki said Ethiopians succeeded in defending their continued independence.
The Battle of Adwa, as I say, end of February 1896, is a battle to ensure the continued independence of Ethiopia. That Ethiopia shall not be like all of these other countries which had become colonies of the West.
Mbeki wondered the good leadership skill of Emperor Menelik by the time to strengthen the people's unity to defend their sovereignty.
This is a fascinating story of leadership. Professor Muchi was saying that one of the problems that we have, a curse we have, is this weakness of leadership on the continent. It's absolutely extraordinary to read about this. Because Menelik, for instance, the Ethiopians had been fighting battles. They'd fought battles against the British, against Egyptians, against Sudan, against the Italians, and so they were sensitive to this fact that to defend the independence to guarantee the independence of Ethiopia, you had to deal with these possible interventions.
He pointed out that time the unity of Ethiopian people in defense of that independence was astonishing. They were very conscious about the need to maintain the cohesion and unity of Ethiopians about the matter of independence.
Various historians articulated on their book that Ethiopians became a beacon of hope for other African countries that were under colonial occupation. Ramon Jones also agrees with these, and he said the victory of Adwa was against European imperialism. Haptam Ashagre has more on the story.
In March 1896, a well-disciplined and massive Ethiopian army did the unthinkable history. It routed an invading Italian force and brought Italy's war of conquest in Africa to an end. In an age of relentless European expansion, Ethiopia had successfully defended its independence and cast doubt upon unshakable certainty of the age that sooner or later all Africans would fall under the rule of Europeans. Ramon Jones, who is the author of the book entitled The Battle of Adwa, African Victory in the Age of Empire, said the victory of Adwa is a game changer for the world politics.
They're built into the story of Adwa, and one of them is that this is the first time that an African army had definitively defeated a European army. I mean, there had been setbacks before. The British had a terrible setback in their war with the Zulu a few years earlier, but it was a setback. I mean, eventually, the outcome was never really in doubt. This was, I suppose, for someone thinking of U.S. history, something like Custer's Last Stand. That it was a serious defeat, but part of an overwhelming and unrelenting process. The victory of the Ethiopians was definitive. It meant that Ethiopian sovereignty was successfully defended, and that made Ethiopia the only African country not to be colonized during the period of high empire. That's astonishing to think about. It was astonishing then. It's still astonishing now. At the time, what made it especially, I think, important was that common sense in the late 19th century had it that Africa was going to suffer the fate that the Americas suffered, that they would be colonized and populated by Europeans. And Adwa, in a very dramatic fashion, put that scenario into doubt.
The author further stresses the victory of Adwa is also witnessing the end of the European power, as well as it is an emblem of equality among human race.
It's part of the challenge of defeat at Adwa is that this is a defeat not only of a European army, but it's a defeat by a black army, and so it inverts the racial hierarchy of the day, which assumes European dominion over the world. And this not challenges the notion of dominion, but also upsets the notion of white superiority. And this has impacts around the world. In fact, in the States, one of the ways that I approached the topic was by looking at how the American press covered the story. And one of the earliest images of Menelik that went out in the American press showed an Ethiopian monarch who looked for all the world like he could be the Tsar of Russia, recently coronated. And then there were stories, too, that the Ethiopians weren't African at all, but in fact of Phoenician descent. There are different ways that people are struggling to come to terms with this very shocking outcome, trying to understand how this could happen, and ultimately interpreting the events in ways that take the racial hurt, the racial dimension of the story away.
Politicians whom TV talked to pronounced the victory of Adwa a symbol of freedom for all black Africans. These opposition political parties suggest the need to narrow differences and stand in unison for a common agenda. Goshimalisa reports.
Historians agree on the existence of ideological differences among local governors and Emperor Menelik, but they appear to accept Menelik's call to fight against the invader, putting their differences aside. With all concerted efforts, Ethiopians were able to score a landslide victory over Italian invaders. Politicians whom ETV talked pronounced the victory of Adwa is a symbol of freedom for all black people.
Adwa signifies the liberation of all oppressed people, not only for Ethiopians or Africans, for all oppressed people by the colonialists. In Latin America, in Asia, people have been enslaved. by the European colonialists. So Adwa symbolizes the candle, the freedom for all these oppressed people in Latin America or in Asia or in Africa. So it's an international victory. People may not realize it this way, but those who were oppressed, the millions oppressed, realize it.
Moreover, Public Relations Head of the Oromo Liberation Front, Qajeela Mardasa, said political parties should put aside their differences and stand in unison for their nation.
We have to differentiate the national interest and the group interest, personal interest. So it needs wisdom. If the leaders, the political leaders, to keep the national interest of the country, they should leave aside some things for the time being. For example, if Ethiopia is invaded, or if from some countries, neighboring countries now tries to open war on Ethiopia, the people or the political parties should defend the country.
Ethiopian Citizens for Social Justice Party Izema also shared this view.
I think Adwa is a very good symbol when it comes to national unity and sovereignty. You know, the way Ethiopians across the border came together to fight the Italian invasion forces to protect their liberty and freedom is a symbol that we should look up to and follow today as well. We might have differences in our political understandings, in the way we understand history. We may have different differences, but what matters is that we should be able to put our differences aside to maintain the country's unity and to build on a common vision for all of us.
Unless political parties narrow their extreme differences wisely, it is impossible to realize the aspired national goal they accounted.